let's
It,
do it.
it must be
Hi, this is
so.
Elizabeth. This is Elizabeth Clare Brewington, and I am absolutely delighted today that I have some really powerful experts with us in the studio. And I have Ken Peters, who's an economist and has worked and with the University of Shanghai and several other places abroad. He's releasing his new book called The Cure, which is a thriller, and I can't wait to read it. And it's going to be available everywhere. I also have in the studio Jim Santos, he's written a book about expats and living abroad, and I have had the privilege of living abroad and working abroad, and it is such an exciting thing. And then we have a medical expert, Dr. Cohen, who is going to talk to you about COVID-19. So the first thing I want to do is I want each one to introduce your books, tell us about yourselves, and then we'll get into 5 areas. We'll talk about COVID and life with COVID, but then life after COVID. And then we'll talk about living abroad, working abroad in our own fields, and then get back to Jim's book on the expats. So first I want to introduce your books, and I'll start with Ken Peters. Tell us about The Cure and tell us about the release on Monday.
Okay, yes, it'll be released on Monday. It's my publisher said it's everywhere from Amazon to Barnes and Nobles to Gardner's in the UK. Broad release, bricks and mortar places too, Baker and Taylor, etc. Anyway, it's a thriller. It's not like Dr. Cohen's, although I do give acknowledgement to Fauci and to Besser. There was a lot of research that went on in this, and I'll leave it to say that it's a taut thriller. And if living in a time of COVID, if you want some excitement, it is very focused on the vaccine, a hypothetical vaccine for HIV, which runs afoul. Okay, how does that sound? Like a short way to put it?
That sounds amazing. And it's going to be available on Monday.
Yes.
Jim Santos, do you have a copy of your book? Can we see it?
Well, I happen to have one here, yes.
Yeah.
This is the latest one.
Yeah.
It's called Living Abroad, Challenging the Myths of Expat Life. I was an expat living in Ecuador for about 6 years. I've written over 200 articles on travel and retirement, travel overseas. And that's actually the 4th book that I've had come out. The way COVID-19 has affected me, we came back to the States to set up a home base. We had decided to take up what's called a roving retirement lifestyle, where instead of just living in one country, you spend 3 to 6 months living in different countries and traveling around. So we return to the US once in a while because we have 9 grandchildren.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so we came back, we established our home base, and then COVID-19 hit, and we've been kind of stuck here for the past year. It's kind of difficult to plan international travel when you don't really know how well you'll be able to travel.
Sure.
But because of all that time here at home with my computer, I managed to get out 3 other books, and this is the 3rd one. I wrote one about our planning to hike the Inca Trail, which we did in 2017. And then I wrote before that, a spectacularly badly timed book on travel to the Galapagos.
Wow.
I wrote this book about our trip to the Galapagos and how to enjoy it on your own and see all these exciting things and just have a wonderful time by yourself. And released it about 3 weeks before the Galapagos shut down to visitors unless you had a tour guide with you and COVID-19 tests. So.
Wow.
Very good. Okay.
I can't wait. And we're starting a library because we have a book club. And so these books are just fantastic. I can't wait to read it. So Dr. Cohen, tell us about your book. And I know we've had a difficult time trying to get a hold on it. I did try to download it, but I can't do it. So tell us all about the book. You're going to have to tell me about it. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm glad that you were able to try, but it is available now on all outlets as we would expect, including an EPUB version. When the epidemic hit, it became very, very clear that certain groups are at much higher risk. And we've all heard this. We've heard that if you are a Black American, you're at extremely high risk. We've heard that if you're older, you're at extremely high risk. But 40 years ago, I made a commitment to focus on preventive medicine, which is something that is often overlooked because it is actually one of the well-acknowledged medical specialties, but there's very few of us that actually do it because it pays so little. And with that focus, for the past 10 years, I've been semi-retired, and I have been treating people for certain issues that came into focus when it came time to look at what was going on with the epidemic. The underlying cause is, for the most part, not in your DNA. And that is the myth that the talking heads will tell you, if you're Black this, if you're Black that. And let's dispel those myths. There are 3 reasons that Black Americans and older Americans are at higher risk. The first is obviously the exposure risk. But why? Well, that's socioeconomic largely. If you're working in a crowded meat processing factory where you're adjacent to other people, or if you're riding the subways of New York as a way to get to work, then you run into a higher exposure risk to start. Okay.
Dr. Cohen, before you get into that, I have a question that I want to pose to all of you, and then we'll probably have to break up and we'll come back to you to let you talk into that directly. I have 2 questions, and I want you all to respond to that, and we can use the efficiency of this time to do that. I mean, obviously, the tragedy of this particular COVID issue is so tremendous, and we don't want for any second to overlook the trauma of loss of life that we've had to face because of it. And that is completely, for families who are suffering and have faced this and are dealing with it now, big deal. But there is an important element to this that we have to take and learn and run from it. There's the element of the social upheaval, and then there's the element of efficiency, because the COVID-19 is efficient. It was efficient as a virus. But the efficiency, and it's had some amazing impacts to our culture in terms of, and for no way do I want to superimpose the loss of life. But, the efficiency of the element is that, we reduce population. Population is reduced. It may not be a good thing, but perhaps in the element of our culture, there are some steps that we must and should take going forward that we become we capture greater control for the future, our culture, our species, who we are, and what that means. And so I'd like to get everybody's response to that, if I could. We'll go around, even if it's just one time. Just one time. And I know it's a difficult process to answer, but I do it in the process of helping us getting an understanding about this, because we've been impacted. Our whole culture will probably never be the same because of this particular sickness and health. Travel has changed.
Yep.
Our living abroad has changed. Our ability to interact and work and function has changed. And so going forward, how do we incorporate those elements so that, and even if you answer one time, and I know you have to go, Ken, but share with us first, and then we'll move around, and then we'll move to the
I think, Ken, you've written a lot of books on economy and the wealth distribution. So tell us about how COVID has affected us from an economy standpoint.
If I get 3 minutes here, and then I'm going to duck out. Okay. Very nice to meet Dr. Cohen. Very nice to meet you, Jim. It's Jim Santos.
Okay.
That's correct.
Just before I answer your question, just to say that, because I'm going to leave. as an expat who lived in Argentina, Venezuela, Colombia, China, Africa, Sweden, there is nothing as wonderful as being as an expat, because you're not visiting places. You are engaging in the culture. You go to people's homes. You all know that. That's all I want to say about how wonderful being an expat is. As an economist, and I didn't get to talk about the book thing, to say that, in my press release, I say, in the genre of Michael Crichton and John Grissom, who are professionals and decided to go to writing, that's basically what happened. You have life experiences. To the point of what Elton is asking, in all phases as an economist, technology has changed things. When I was living in Africa, and we had iterations of TB because people weren't taking medicine properly, and so bone TB became prevalent. And people could get on planes in 18 hours and go from one place to another. That's it. Certainly, without going into politics, you can probably figure what my politics are. But we didn't have a good system or someone who was really saying we've got a problem here. So the issues of being a Fauci person, the issues of containment could have been done very quickly. I love how they nail Fauci and say, well, you didn't say this in October. Well, that was an excerpt. We were learning, and Dr. Cohen will be the first person to say that in my experience, although I'm an international economist, I was always in healthcare. You're always learning. You cannot snap to anything, because it's a compilation, accumulation of data that gives you information to make decisions. So in answering Elton as quickly as I can, to just say that it is technology, as I see it, that we have to change the way, like for example, I was on a call this morning. I may be involved in a 90-day project in Kenya for a pharmaceutical factory for Merck. I said to them, I don't think you understand. We don't have vaccination passports yet. I don't know that I said, if you're talking about 2022, maybe we can do that.
Yeah.
So I see technology as one of the biggest obstacles we have. It certainly has been an obstacle for us politically, because look what happened with Donald Trump and tweeting, and no one, we're back to a world of people tweeting. So I'm not sure what the answer is. I can only say that technology, to me, answering Elton as tight as I can, is the biggest hurdle that we are going to have to overcome. And also from Dr. Cohen's standpoint of view, I was with somebody yesterday, and I asked, and I was at Mount Sinai Hospital, and this was not a doctor, but there's a staff person. Are you getting the vaccination? She said no, and it wasn't a person of color. This is white Anglo-Saxon, and I'm saying to myself, we don't have the education. Now that's part of technology. Why are we not using the technology to educate people? This messenger RNA of putting something in there, rather than using a rhinovirus, where we actually, don't forget that, a vector, rather than using a vector to bring in that change, this is a messenger saying, no, this is how you fight the disease. Okay, so I'm kind of shocked. So technology, in a sum, before I leave to say to you, and
that's a good point.
That's a big part of the book,
Yeah.
the cure, and also this one was about technology too. No, but technology is the thing of the 21st century that is our biggest obstacle.
Well, you make a good point. It's our biggest obstacle, but it's also our greatest asset.
Yes.
So the problem is that we have to find a way to transmigrate the technology across the globe, globally, so that everybody can benefit in that way. So
no, I know, and it's so ridiculous because my relatives in London are being vaccinated with another drug. We're being vaccinated with something else. India's being vaccinated. Okay. I'm like, what is going on? Yeah. So
I just want to say that the on one last thing, which is my books have not written on, climate change. One of the things when I lecture and I talk about, most people don't realize that in Syria, the reason why they have this problem is the drought that happened in 1992. People moved from farms with large populations of children in a different culture, in a different tribe into the cities, that doesn't work. Okay. So climate change is a big part of our migration issues and many other things. And I want to say thank you very much for having me here. And Elizabeth, I look forward to you getting in touch with me about Earth Day and being a participant. And Jim, pleasure to meet you. Dr. Cohen, pleasure to meet you. I have some things I've got to go and I'm going to sign off.